so let's go ahead and try another one. So in looking at this, y'all, immediately I see tangent and cotangent. And I'm thinking, okay, how can I simplify these? So if you remember, tangent is sine over cosine, cotangent, cosine over sine. So as you see these, pause and see if you can do it yourself. Do it on your own without my help, okay? All of this is over secant squared of x. So before I even deal with this, what I want to go ahead and do is say, okay, I noticed that these things do not have a common denominator. What can I do to give them a common denominator? So I know this has cosine and this has sine. So what am I going to multiply top and bottom here? What am I going to multiply top and bottom by here in order to get these a common denominator? Well, this is the same thing if you had like 1 over 4 plus 1 over 3. Well, you know what's the least common multiple for both of those? Well, I know it would have to be 12, which is 4 times 3, or 3 times 4. So this one I'd have to multiply by 3 over 3. This one I'd have to multiply by 4 over 4. So you're essentially just multiplying by the opposite denominator. So here, same is true. What I need to do is multiply this by sine over sine. And I want to multiply this one by cosine over cosine. So then I'm left with sine squared of x over sine of x cosine of x plus cosine squared x over sine of x cosine of x. And again, all that is still over secant squared of x. We're just not dealing with that yet, okay? So now I notice I have common denominator. I can go ahead and add the numerators and leave the denominators the same. So sine squared x plus cosine squared x all over our common denominator is this, divided by secant squared of x. Now I hope when y'all saw this that you're starting to see what's going on and you got as excited as I did. So what's sine squared plus cosine squared? 1. So all of this is 1 over sine of x, cosine of x, all over secant squared of x. All right, now let's deal with that secant squared. So what is secant squared? So this is the same as, that stays the same for now, divided by 1 over cosine squared of x. Well, remember, if I had 1/4 divided by 1/2, this is the same thing as 1/4 times the reciprocal of this fraction, 2 over 1. Same is true here. 1 over sine cosine is the same as, if you're dividing by 1 over cosine squared, it's the same as multiplying by the reciprocal of this fraction that's on the denominator. So now, if I multiply fractions, you multiply top by top and bottom by bottom. So I end up with cosine squared x over sine of x, cosine of x. So this is the same thing as if I had x squared over y times x. Same thing we dealt with on that last one. What can you do if you have the same base? These are the same base. What can you do? Well, you can cancel out one of these cosines. Okay, so all of this, if I have cosine squared x divided by cosine, leaves me just one of those cosines over sine of x. Well, this should look familiar. Remember, sine over cosine is tangent, which means cosine over sine is equal to cotangent.